Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining me here on this town hall. We got a few other members of the team here. Appreciate you guys being here and maintaining your physical distancing behind the scenes. You can obviously bring them in if we have a question that one of our experts here needs to answer. But I'm going to get right into it. We'll spend as much time as you need to answer questions, but I'm going to try not to drag this out. But if you're tuning in, then I feel like you want to get some value out of this, and I want to try to make sure we set the stage for what reset looks like, what our current posture is, and address some of the questions about particular services due to the COVID situation, and then I'll also answer some of the other questions, talk about a couple other issues we have. So with that, we'll get started here. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of talk about the overall mindset of the reset. So we've just been through the Memorial Day weekend. We sent out quite a few messages about, we know that parts of the state are starting to open up. Island County just got its authorization to move to stage 2. Skagit County is a little bit further behind that, and certainly down the I-5 corridor as they deal with their own aspects of the pandemic. So we're tracking all that stuff with our local and state partners, while we also adhere to policies set by DOD and the Navy. So going into Memorial Day weekend, we emphasize that despite the predictable increase in tourist traffic for Deception Pass and beaches and all these kinds of places, our expectation is that we wouldn't congregate with others and thereby increase the risk of potentially spreading COVID-19 amongst us. Our goal remains taking care of our people and our families and maintaining our mission readiness. We've all seen the news and followed the story of Theodore Roosevelt, and we've got our squadrons, our Growler squadron on board the AQ-142. We've also had news of USS Kidd having to come into port down in San Diego. She's going to end up coming back up here to Everett, I think in August, I saw, to come back to her home station. And so our efforts continue to be making sure that we maintain our mission readiness posture so that we can deploy our forces. We've been through a lot of homecomings and deployments since this started. This kicked in right as we were going into our springtime maritime patrol rotations, plus we had VAQ squadrons rotating along with the FRC, COP debts and van op debts. And so we've had a lot of movements, but we've worked through all of that with evolving policy. So I really want to say how much I applaud the effort of Team Whidbey to work through these things and provide mission-ready deployable forces to our fleet commanders. It's extraordinary, and so it's really been a great effort. And we're going to continue doing that. We have another rotation of squadrons coming up here soon, and we'll have evolving policy as we go through the reset. So with that, our guidance continues to be that we are different than the rest of the population. We need to maintain our mission readiness, and we need to continue taking the precautions, wearing cloth face coverings when you're not going to be able to maintain physical distancing of 6 feet. We are mandatory in places like the exchange, commissary, when you're coming into facilities, at the facility entrance, enhanced screening, and all those kinds of places that we're now pretty accustomed to. So if you're in your office and you're by yourself, drop your face covering. But then if somebody comes in and you have to close talk for some reason, I don't know why, then you need to put your covering on. If you can maintain that distancing, then great. And then otherwise, if you're going out in the hallway to go to the restroom, you're not going to be able to make sure that you can maintain that distancing. So you need to wear your cloth face covering, wash your hands after you get done with the restroom and throughout the day, all those kinds of things. So we need to continue doing those things. Because I tell you what, as we look at our numbers at Team Whidbey on the installation, and from what we know of all the dependents, very low numbers. And so we've been able to maintain our operations, maintain our homecomings and deployments. We've been able to maintain the construction projects we have going on. Lots of great efforts. We've been able to deliver services in new ways through virtual means and things like that. So really, really extraordinary, especially with the fact that we've been able to keep our numbers really low. So that's great across the board. So with that, one of the things that I will say is my expectation whenever I'm out in town and I'm in uniform, and really when I'm not in uniform too, if I'm going into a store or a restaurant to pick up the carry out or whatever it is, then I'm wearing a cloth face covering. And I've got no problem with doing that, okay? Because we need to make sure we're doing that. And I certainly expect that when people are in uniform, that they're complying with the DOD and Navy policies associated with that. So I appreciate your effort on doing that. So with that, and this is Admiral Grady, Fleet Forces. I just wanted to quote this: mitigation measures by any member of our team to include family members. So any inaction or misaction on mitigation members by any member of our team, to include family members, does put our fleet at risk. So you need to think about that when you're going out doing things. So so please do so. Our mindset right now covers 4 things: our readiness, our response, our reset, and our reflash concerns. So with that, I'll get into what our reset looks like. So there are multiple guiding documents that governs this. We just got a few more policies in the last 48 hours, so we're always keeping up with what is coming down on that stuff. You're going to see guidance from the White House. You're going to see guidance from the state, and you're going to see guidance from the county. And so we also are tracking all those kinds of things. And then the thing here is that we have a framework for the reset, and just to briefly explain that, it's in stages. So we've been through stage 0, which was really making sure that, once the cloth face covering recommendation from CDC came out, they didn't just magically appear, of course, the next minute. So there was some spool up time to get our processes going so that we could get cloth face coverings for purchase for our workforce. So we're pretty much through that. We've received some shipments of that. Likewise, in the community, I know there was plenty of people out there providing cloth face coverings, and now you can go on all kinds of websites to order cloth face coverings and go in stores and get them. So that whole market spooled up, and so that's one of the elements of stage 0. Another one was making sure that we had temperature scanners and other measures for the facility entrances. We also now manufacture the plexiglass shields at customer service locations around the base. So all these kinds of efforts are all part of stage 0, where we maintained our distributed workforce and we put all these little measures in place that are prescribed. So we're pretty much through that. We're still finding little places where we need to continue working through that, but we're through stage 0 into stage 1. So what that really means for the service providers is that we are we're looking at bringing more people back to work. We're making sure that we understand individual concerns with health risks of our members in the workforce and also health risks on the home front, so that we can make accommodations based on those individual needs to appropriately equip them to do some kind of telework and take their accommodations into with respect, while we also leverage the rest of the workforce who can come in and provide the services we need. Now, of course, there are entities like air traffic control, fire and emergency services, security, et cetera, that we have maintained at almost 100% capacity. But obviously, we've made those accommodations for not only health risks, but also childcare concerns, so that we could maintain the mission readiness of those forces while we also take care of the health and well-being of our people and our families. So those will continue to be tweaked a little bit, but there's other elements like inside a Fleet and Family Support Center and those kinds of things where we've pushed all that workforce out. They've been working from home and taking all those kinds of measures for the most part. And so now we're ready to bring them back to the workplace. We've got the workplace figured out. We're working through the individual needs, and we're about ready to bring those services back online. Now, likewise, that's within the installation staff. You have squadron and other commands across the base that some have had to maintain 24/7 watch floors and stuff like that. Others do the maintenance shift work, and so there are mitigation measures that each command has taken, whether it might be day check works their period, and then they take an hour break, and then night check comes in, so we don't have that overlap having more people in the workplace. I know commands have gone from doing blue and gold or red and silver or whatever the colors they wanted to assign their dual shifts to alternate days. And now in the last couple months, they've migrated to more of a 5-day work week, but with the expectation there that supervisors are managing their teams to make sure that individual needs are being met, whether it's childcare and schooling, or whether it's health risks that put them, at higher risk. So all those kinds of things, those need to be handled at the deck plate leadership level to make sure that they're being taken care of. So that's the general mindset across the commands as we've been through stage 0, and we're now working on stage 1. Other services that are going to continue to, let's talk child and youth programs. So tremendous effort by our CYP staff, and that's school age care and our child development center. We have really, they've done great. There was all the uncertainty as the policies were being developed, and I just can't tell you how much I appreciate what they've been through and what they've done in this time to support our mission critical personnel across the base, across Team Whidbey. So thanks for that. And so we're still working in basically 2 shifts. So if you take 100% of the staff that we had going into this situation, we've lost some staff who decided that they want to move on to other things or just didn't want to work in the environment. We also have some staff who have health concerns, health risks, either themselves or at home. And then with the rest of the staff, we've got them broken into 2 groups so that we're working the blue and gold shifts over a 2-week schedule. And so that allows us to have them focus on the CDC and school age care, and then rotate out every 2 weeks. And it allows us to be much more responsive while we're consolidated in Regatta and we're working school age care out of the youth center, that we can then be very responsive in case we get a positive in our child and youth programs, so that we can put an entire staff, if we needed to, into ROM based on contact tracing and COVID testing. And then we can bring that other staff in after we do sanitization, all that kind of stuff. So really great effort, but that's going to continue for a little while. So we're not going to magically go back to 330 CDC spots and 135 school age care spots in a day. We're going to maintain that reduced capacity for a while. And what I've communicated to command leadership out there is that they need to take that into account as they're managing their own workforce, okay? Because not only do we have those restrictions, but child care centers in town and stuff have their restrictions as well put on the state. And so so they should not expect to just have anybody, like a single sailor with kids who needs child care. I mean, they're their number 1 priority. And so we need to make sure they get taken care of if they're a mission critical sailor. If we have dual military, then we need commands working together to try to figure out if we can do alternating schedules or whatever it is. But there's got to be continued communication, because we're not going to magically have a lot more capacity, because we need to continue maintaining or taking care of our staff there at the CYP program. The galley's been doing an incredible job. They have had the newspaper article about the services they've been providing. They were doing 2,000 meals a day for all of our ROM and pre-deployment sequester personnel and all the other people coming in to get takeout. So I can't say enough about how impressed I am with how the galley staff has worked through this as well. So thanks for that. So the next step, as we work through those individual measures we need to take, is when do those services come online? And so what we're working through is making sure that we have the workforce all set. And I anticipate by the middle of June that I'll be sending the request up to Fleet Forces to get approval to move to stage 2. And you give that a little bit of time. And right now I'm anticipating, therefore, that I might have that approval by the end of June. And so and what that would look like is I would have all the services that we need to provide, and I would have a beginning state and end state for stage 1 to stage 2. And then I get that approval, and now I have the authority at that point to then dial in services as I feel locally the conditions have been met to bring that service online. So it's not like I'm going to get that approval and then boom, everything is up to the next step. We'll still manage that locally, but I still need to, for that step in itself, I still need to get that approval from higher echelon. And so that covers really all the services out there, whether you're talking golf. Well, everybody asks about golf. I'll go through a bunch of other services, the RV park, all that kind of stuff. That's all wrapped up into that process. The other element that this reset stage progression follows is what's going on, obviously, with the COVID situation on the base in Team Whidbey and what's going on in the local community. There's a few measures that we're tracking, some metrics as far as what's going on in the local communities, both Island and Skagit, and what's going on in the base, number of positives, PUIs, people under investigation, personnel under investigation, high risk contact, all that kind of stuff. So as long as we continue to see downward trend over 2 weeks and greater, then we are able to work towards that, sending that request up. If, for example, we just had Memorial Day weekend, if in a week or two we start seeing an increase in numbers because people were congregating, not following all these measures that we're talking about, and now we have an increase, that's just going to push off that whole service reconstitution later, because then we need to get back to having a downward trend again. So that's where it really takes everybody as part of Team Whidbey to come together. I know it's frustrating. The weather's great out there. I've got a travel trailer. I want to get it out there, go camping. I want the kids to have more play dates and all those kinds of things. I definitely want the kids out of the house and not just on my property, but out. Anyway, we all need to continue working through this, and because every individual has a role in this. Why is that? Because our numbers have been so low when it comes to positives that really a small cluster of positives is going to provide a drastic increase in our percentages, and that's going to push off our reconstitution till later. So please continue your own mitigation actions to help out Team Whidbey there. Okay, so I will say, I think probably some of you went to the Island County when they administered COVID tests down at the high school, and I think other locations. Yeah, they did a few locations. They ended up doing about just over 2,500 tests from whoever wanted to come get one through the community. And there have been 0 positives in all that test. There was a press release that went out recently about that. So that's not new news. It might be new news to you, but that really does, because that right there also goes into my request to get that leeway to move from stage 1 to 2, hopefully by the end of June, because I can show that the community is tracking very well on that. Hopefully those trends stay consistent after our Memorial Day weekend. Okay, let me talk about travel real quick, because it has been that June 30 was the deadline on the travel moratorium. We have worked waivers for some personnel. So some personnel have been able to move to PCS. We've also had some TAD travel that we've gotten waivered. So there are some abilities there, especially if there's financial hardship or some kind of personal hardship that goes along with that. Now, I just got this guidance that was signed out right before the weekend, probably Friday afternoon, because that seems to be whenever they sign out guidance in DC. And basically, this is the Secretary of Defense guidance. So you can find this online. I'm not going to read the whole thing. And we're also awaiting the Navy policy that goes along with this. But just to give you the quick highlights on this one, so basically this is based off of the White House's Opening Up America guidelines, Opening Up America Again guidelines. And so it talks about taking not so much a date. There's not going to be a deadline. It's just as long as this memorandum's in effect. And it basically tasks everybody to look at the regions, look at the areas, and then make a determination based on criteria in here of, has the local community removed shelter-in-place orders or other travel restrictions? Has there a 14-day downward trajectory of flu-like and COVID symptoms? Is there a 14-day downward trajectory of new COVID-19 cases or positive tests? All those kinds of things, again, more based on the situation and not by a date. So we have to process this in the pending Navy policy. to determine how we look as far as Whidbey Island is concerned, how the region looks like as far as all the Puget Sound naval bases, and then also the greater area. And then what we would do is we'd look at, for my quick reading of this, we would look at our situation and establish how we fit in that criteria, look at what the situation is, where that person is PCSing or traveling to. And then there are certain levels there I would expect that we'd be able to make that call that that person could move. For example, if it's a PCS from NASWI to Bremerton, then maybe I would think that this policy would allow us to do that at a regional level, and then other things would have to go up to a higher level. There's still waivers and exemptions in this as well, so more to follow on this, but I think that that's a very reasonable step forward on the PCS and travel moratorium guidance. Okay, so into some of the questions that we got, and one of the questions that we came in right before this started was, oh, so there's a spouse there whose service member is coming back from deployment soon. And so that service member is planning to, I don't know, either by direction of the spouse or by their own volition of camping in the backyard for a week to go through their own self-guided quarantine ROM situation. And so the question was, is there opportunity, are we putting people on base for that post-deployment period? So I think that there's a lot of people in the community who've already gone through, well, I know there is a lot of people in the community who've already gone through this. And so I don't know where this person is coming back from. I suspect I know where it is, but they, based on their situation, they're going to get screened before they get on that travel coming back, as if they're traveling on military air. And so they're going to do screening. And so then they're going to get here, they're going to do screening. And then if there's no flu-like symptoms, if there's nothing that pops on the screening, then they're going to just go into a post-travel ROM status. And so you can do that at home, amongst your family. It doesn't mean that you're of a much higher chance or likelihood of having COVID-19. There is an increased risk because you've been traveling and come from a different area. And you got to look at the individual case and your own situation. But what I will say is if there is a health condition in the house that you're concerned about, then absolutely yes. Work with your command to get in touch with NASWI so that we can either get that person on a post-deployment ROM in NGIS or the barracks. And so we can do that 2-week, 14-day ROM period on the base. And we did that for for a few personnel coming back from those other deployments. Otherwise, if there's not a health risk, then I would urge you to welcome that service member back with open arms, integrate them in the house. There's already plenty of post-deployment angst and stress going on. And so just take a look at the COVID part, work through that. If you need a place, yes, we can provide a place, but we don't just blanket provide a place for everybody. When we did provide a place for everybody was on a pre-deployment sequester for VAQ 139 going out to Nimitz. So, and the Van Optet personnel associated. So we had the entire squadron sequestered on base between NGIS and barracks, and they could only go to those facilities and their work. And their work was all separated. They were separated in those facilities because we needed to make sure there was as close to a 0% chance of COVID getting into that squadron as possible, so that when they got out to Nimitz, we didn't replicate what we learned from the TR. And so Nimitz is out there. She's been out operating for at least a couple of weeks now, I think. And so as soon as she's worked through my understanding is, as soon as she's worked through her qualifications for COM2X and is deployable, then I expect that she's going to head west. And then I would hope that Truman and VAQ 137 could come home at that point. But that's just my speculation based on my 30 plus years of working in the service. I'm not really in the know exactly on that. Okay. Let's see. Is the information from this town hall being shared with deployed personnel? Absolutely. We communicate with our command leaders across the installation, whether they're deployed or at home. We do periodic email updates. We do weekly triad phone calls. And certainly, since this is on Facebook and YouTube, deployed personnel, unless they're bobbing around on a ship like I always did on deployment. I know we've got a lot of people who don't deploy that way in Team Whidbey. So if you're an expat or a maritime patrol, they could be tuning into this. I know we did have that because I had one of my previous security super sailors who went off to Bahrain made some comments on one of the last ones. So I do know that people are tuning in from overseas. And so, yes, we do provide this information. Okay, so some of the questions we got ahead of time. When will the CY Child and Youth Program, CDC, reopen for parents going back to work in non-essential jobs? That's going to come. I can't tell you exactly when, but I went through what our mindset is on CYP right now. I will tell you that we are going to be communicating how that service is going to move forward as we get to the end of June. Hopefully, if trends are still good, we get to the end of June, we go into the next stage of CYP. It's going to continue to be a limiting factor. Childcare and distance learning for the schools is continuing to be a limiting factor on our workforce, and supervisors need to work through that. So for those non-essential or non-mission critical folks, it's going to be a little while. But when the decision is made to reopen the CYP facility or move them forward on that service delivery, then you'll get a 2-week notice that your spot is coming back because you were on the list before and you were removed. And likewise, anybody who's gotten temporary services in this time because they are mission critical, but they weren't already enrolled, they're going to get a notice that their service will end on a certain date, okay? And then the fees will all reflect that. So that's the future of CYP in a nutshell. All good? Okay, great. Let's see, there was another question in the CDC. So why are parents now required to wear masks in CDC all of a sudden, but we see employees not wearing a mask when they are around children all day? So what you're not seeing, okay, when you go in there and deliver your child into our care or pick them up from our care, is you're not seeing what's going on in the classrooms all day. The policy is that CDC staff are required to wear a mask when they're in the classroom with children. Okay, because it's impossible to maintain physical distancing in that environment. And I applaud our staff who work every day in that environment. However, once they leave the classroom, okay, if they are in a situation where they can maintain that physical distancing, then they're not required to wear a mask. Likewise, when you go in, you see all of our great staff behind their desks, they're not required to wear a mask either, as long as they can maintain that physical distancing. So we are requiring parents to come in with a mask, right? Because you're doing that enhanced screening right at the front, so you can't maintain distancing when you're doing temperature scans, just like we do at all our facilities. And then you deliver your child, and then you're out. Okay, so yes, you do see people who are not wearing masks there, but in the classrooms, staff, or when they can't maintain physical distancing, they're wearing masks. Okay, so is there a timeline on when the recycling center will open? So it was initially closed at the very beginning. That was a very brief period of time, but we brought it back online because it's important to keep that recycling stream going. What we're doing is it's open every day in the morning, but it's targeted towards our workforce on the installation. That's where we need to meet the need of taking care of all that refuse and getting it into the recycling stream. Oh, I didn't talk to you, sorry, Siri. Sorry about that. And so it's Beijing on the line, I'm sure. Anyway, so the recycling center, it's still open. We need to maintain that recycling stream because it reduces the cost of our waste handling, okay? And it does provide us a cost benefit. And so we're continuing to do that with the workforce on the base. You can't come in from out in town as a retiree, or if you live in housing or whatever, and drop off recycling, but that's the current status of recycling. We are looking at how that service is going to move forward as we go into stage 2, and so more information to follow, but that's the current status. It is open. If you have recycling, you work on the base, you have metals, you have file cabinets, you have whatever you have, they will come pick that stuff up for you. They're open in the mornings for you to drop that stuff off. So please make sure you're using that recycling center if you are working on base. When's the golf course opening? it's been reported that other military golf courses opened over the weekend. Okay, I don't know about open over the weekend, but I will tell you that there's lots of military golf courses that are open around the country, and even in the state. I think JBLM's course is open, has been open. Unfortunately, because as we went through our initial phases, we closed the golf course along with all the other recreational services. For me to get that turned on now is going to be part of that stage 1 to stage 2 service change. So right now, I don't anticipate anything, at least until the end of June. I realize with the great weather out there, it's a great way to get exercise. It really is, between running and golfing and all these things, a great way to get your mental health straight, all that kind of stuff. I feel that we can do it appropriately, and we're going to get to doing it appropriately as soon as I can. So, so that is certainly one of the services that are right up there. When will the mask wearing requirements end of loosen? When will they loosen? End or loosen. Well, you got to go to the CDC and this is not our Child Development Center. This is the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Okay, they're the ones who set that recommendation out there. So as long as that recommendation is out there, as long as coronavirus and COVID-19 is a concern, I expect this to be around. So personally, for a while. So I've got these. This is my first, actually second and third model. But I'm already in the market for another one because of the lessons I learned with this one. So, so get a mask you're comfortable with, get a set of them, make sure you wash them regularly, and just that's the way life is right now. When will the base fit open? Back to stage 1 and 2. I'm thinking probably end of June timeframe if trends continue, if people continue to do the things that we need them to do. When will playgrounds open? So that's one that, again, I'll put in that end of June timeframe. We have the Hunt playgrounds, and we have the playgrounds over on Altfield, that new beautiful playground we got Secretary of Defense to pay for. And so it's a shame with this beautiful weather that they aren't open. I realize that. But we want to get those open as soon as possible. So I work very closely with Hunt on that. And certainly once we feel like we've met all that criteria, that we'll go ahead and get that open. I realize on this point and many others in golf and in all these kinds of recreational things, we are going to be behind our state and local partners on these things. Okay. And it's simply because we're different. We've maintained very low numbers. We've got to maintain the health and welfare of our people and mission readiness. It's that risk to force and risk to mission balance that we have to continue walking through. So we're going to be behind on these things. I think that there are some playgrounds and parks open in the local community. We were up at Skagit over the weekend to just drive around and check out some things from the car. And I saw that Skagit still had caution tape around their playgrounds up there in Anacortes in places. So, but I do expect as those playgrounds open up, we will feed that into our decision making. But that's not going to be the thing that therefore we say, okay, let's open the playgrounds up. But we will be deliberate about that and we will communicate it. I don't have a date right now, but the general criteria is moving into that stage 1 to 2 transition. Cliffside open. Okay, so I've got a few Cliffside RV Park questions here. And so let me get to those real quick. Okay, I took our first travel trailer trip that I did with the boys. We went over to Cliffside. Great place, great staff, awesome place. So needless to say, that's one of the places I want to get back to, but even I can't do that. Who can go there? Right here. If you're PCSing and you need temporary lodging, call them directly, talk to them about the situation, and we can work you in there. We have closed Cliffside in this time to Space A travel, but people who have been longtime residents or on a PCS in or out, and they got a travel trailer or RV or whatever, and they need a place to stay, then yes, we can suitably accommodate that. So please call Cliffside yourself. Where are you going to get the number? Well, you go onto your smartphone and you pull up your Navy Life PNW app, and you go right into Cliffside RV, all that kind of stuff, and you got all the information right there at your fingertips. So I highly encourage you, Navy Life PNW and the Rent Cafe resident app from Hunt. If you don't have those loaded on your phone, you're wrong, okay? Those are two great resources that you need to get on your smartphone so that you can have all that information right at your fingertips. So update on when Cliffside RV Park will reopen. So yes, as of now, it's available. I almost scratched my face, but I didn't. It's available for longtime residents and PCS. Now we're getting into the summer season. So we got to work. Normally we don't let longtime residents stay there. I think you can be there 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, or something like that. But we'll work through that. As long as we're not allowing Space A travel, we should be able to allow our longtime residents to stay there. Once we're ready to turn Space A travel back on, then we'll communicate that, and that again would go into that service reconstitution. I'm hoping for the end of June. I'm pushing for the end of June on that, if we can keep trends down. Let's see. When it reopens, will the rental RVs that are already on site be open? I anticipate that, yes, that'll be part of that whole package. We actually stayed in those before we got our travel trailer. Loved it. Beautiful RVs that you can stay in. And so, yes, I anticipate that that would be the case. If we have reservations in June for a site and a rental RV, but the camp does not reopen by then, will we get a refund? Absolutely. Just like we've done already. All reservations that have been or may be canceled due to COVID-19 have or will receive a refund. And honestly, they're taking their credit card just to hold the reservation. They're not charging it until you get there and check in. So certainly communicate with them, cancel if you need to cancel for these kinds of reasons. And if we get to the point where we're not Space A, we'll reach out to you and let you know that your reservation has to be canceled. And I'm pretty sure across all of our N9 services throughout this time, you know, if you've had a reservation at NGIS or Navy Lodge for NEX or, you know, whatever, and your travel was canceled or, you know, then we're not charging people for that stuff. So, so yes, absolutely. Okay. So that's that stuff. Sticking on here, when will the Navy Exchange barbershops and hair salon reopen? So this is one of those that, you know, we work with. Navy Exchange has their own policy channels. They're closely aligned with Navy at the top, and we're communicating very closely with Navy Exchange management here locally and regionally. So I anticipate that that one is going to be in that stage 1 to 2 transition. Believe me, I've been trying to get myself to do another haircut for a couple days. I need to get that done. I would love to be able to go to the barbers to do that, but we'll get to that point. I'm anticipating in that stage 1 to 2 transition come end of June that we would be doing that. Likewise for the gym, there have been questions about when the gym's going to open. So I anticipate, again, go another month. But here's what I ask you not to do. We had somebody in Team Whidbey who cut a hole in the canvas of the NOPS gym, okay? And they went in and they stole some of our equipment in there. Absolutely, it just astounds me that somebody would do something like that. So certainly we've got CID and NCIS investigating that. I hope we find out who that person was so we can hold them accountable, because that's not everybody here at Team Whidbey. But we do unfortunately have some people like that here, and that's very unfortunate. Yeah. So barbershop, golf, food services, gym, these are all considered kind of common areas. So obviously where you have people interacting. And so they're specifically mentioned in one of the policies, NAVAM 147/20, as requiring additional mitigation measures for cleaning, physical distancing, and limits on how many people can be in them. Same stuff that we're seeing out in restaurants. You know, as we go into stage 2 in the county, we're going from takeout, carry out to having some kind of capacity in restaurants to be able to dine in restaurants, stuff like that. So we're going to go through the same kind of thing. And so we'll address that in our phases of service. So I talked a lot about stage 1 to stage 2. Stage 2 is not the end of the line. That's just the initial opening up of services, and each service is going to have their own criteria and own kind of pathway and we'll continue communicating that stuff through all of our media, Facebook, YouTube, our website, social media, Navy Life PNW, Rent Cafe app, all that kind of stuff. We'll continue putting that information out there. After stage 2 comes to stage 3. That's obviously a much more robust stage. And then all along the way, we're going to have conditions for reflash where if we get suddenly a high incidence through our COVID testing, our contact tracing, and our measures that we take, we might look at dialing back some services to kind of bring us back a little bit, get through that reflash, and then bring those services back online. So all that kind of stuff is set in our guidance and our thoughts moving forward. Okay, let me talk security issues a little bit. Like I've talked about other great entities on Team Whidbey, relay a little story here. So we saw obviously the incidents in Pensacola, and then we also saw the incident down in Corpus Christi. Well, that sailor took a round right in the chest into her Kevlar, her protective armor, and knocked her down. But she was able to hit that final denial barrier button, which popped the bollards, stopped that terrorist from entering Corpus, where he was planning on going and just shooting people up. And her and the responding forces were able to subdue that person through 9mm and other ammunition. So really commend Corpus Christi. That's the second really major incident they've dealt with in the last year. They also had somebody drive onto the installation and ended up in explosion on the final denial barrier and gunfire to subdue that person as well. So really tragic events, but just amazing reaction by the forces. So in my social media, I had a friend of mine post that they wanted to fill their Suburban up with a bunch of beer and their kids and drive down to Corpus Christi to give that to that sailor. That's great. But I tell you what, if you want to thank a sentry, thank them every time you come in here, because I am confident that our sentries are going to respond the same way. And I'm also confident that the threat that exposed itself in Pensacola and in Corpus Christi has the same likelihood of taking place here. So that's why Memorial Day weekend, you saw the body armor. We continue to take measures because of the threat that's out there, and we continue to have great security forces on our installation at our ECPs and our patrols 24/7, 366 days this year. So with security, because of that, I can't take every member of the security force and open up all the gates and just have relatively open access. So what we're doing is we are looking at how many people are coming on the base. So just looking at the data today, we still have about a 25 to 35% reduction in the traffic from the average that we've seen in the last 12 months, a reduction from the average to what we're seeing right now on the base, coming onto the base, on and off. The same on alt field and seaplane base. So that tells me that we still have that distributed workforce. We still have people teleworking. We obviously have wrench turners and watchstanders and all those folks who need to be here to do their job. But we still have a distributed workforce out there. We have gotten some comments about asking for some a relief valve on the outbound in the afternoon. So I did look at the numbers on the outbound traffic, and Charles Porter is about like 130, 150% of its average. So we're going to open up Saratoga starting next Monday for outbound traffic in the afternoon. Kind of have on the south side, we'll have the southeast and the southwest sides, and of course Hammer Northgate still open. So we'll be able to do that to relieve the pressure on the outbound starting Monday. But I'm not ready to go beyond that at that point. We'll continue looking at the data. We'll continue working with the triads across the base to understand who's looking at bringing in more workforce. And so as we do that, we'll continue working that service towards what it was in the past. Another aspect of security doesn't have to do with COVID, but somebody over in Mailer Point, which is amazing to me because it's inside the fence line, unlike Crescent Harbor, Victory Terrace, and Whidbey Apartments. but somebody in Mailer Point had ordered something online, like everybody does. It was delivered, and we assessed that it was stolen off of their porch inside the fence line. Okay, so tell me who did that? Somebody from Team Whidbey did that. So of course we have all of our CID and NCIS helping with the investigation. I hope we can catch that person and hold them accountable. But what I will say is, whether it's cars, we had the Victory Terrace prowling last year. We have worked with local authority. There are warrants out for arrest on those 2 individuals. So hopefully the local authorities can hold them accountable. Great effort by our investigation team to track that down. Really extensive effort. We have package on the doorstep, your doors, all that kind of stuff. You live in base housing, but you're not free of that kind of stuff. So I really encourage you to take care of your own stuff. Just be watchful. Some things that you can do to help yourself out. Go ahead and get a security camera at your front door or porch. You could require signature on delivery, set up delivery alert notifications so you know that the package got there. If you can't be home, reschedule or delay. All those kinds of things that you can do. So, but too bad that we have to deal with that kind of stuff in base housing. That's unfortunate. Okay, a couple questions here. One, kind of in the housing category, but in the barracks. Is there a plan to make the single sailor housing single person rooms to further protect the single sailors from spreading any illnesses? So what we've done and what we'll continue to do in this respect is, if we have a sailor who is entitled to unaccompanied housing barracks, and they become a PUI, person under investigation for COVID, because of all the criteria that goes into that, or they've had some high-risk contact, then we've got a process to put them in their own room, okay? So they're not paired up with somebody. But if it's not that, if it's somebody just doing a post-travel ROM, or like all the pre-deployment sequester we did, all those people were not given their own rooms. They're paired up, and they're told, given some direction on how to manage themselves. But really, until you hit that category where you become more suspect of potentially having COVID, then no, we're not going to separate people. We just don't have the capacity and luxury to be able to do that. So we're doing it smartly. We're doing it appropriately. And those people who do need to have their own room and they're entitled to they get their own room for that, just for that period. How long will sailors be required to ROM? What will be the maximum distance they will be allowed from the area? Can we gradually increase ROM for families to travel the state of Washington? So how long will sailors be required to ROM? It's 14 days. There's nothing other than 14 days, right? Yeah, there's 14 days across the board for pre-deployment sequester. 139 and the van updat, or the COPDAT, ended up getting elongated because their schedule slid, so they were in there for longer than 14 days. But the goal is 14 days for any ROM period. And those measures are going to be in place for the foreseeable future. So we'll continue working through those. As far as traveling, so just continue to work with your command on what that local area is. Honestly, we looked at this up to Memorial Day weekend. We didn't change our policy. The guidance from on high is, the expectation is that you're minimizing the risk of COVID-19 coming into our community and our Team Whidbey community and our forces, and we're maintaining mission readiness. So the expectation is you're really doing that home residence and work thing and minimizing all that other stuff to essential things. So I ask you to continue keeping that in your mind as you struggle with that desire to go out there and do other things that you see are going on in the community. And so that's going to continue for the foreseeable future. And I really do hope, not only personally, but across our Team Whidbey community, that we can get to letting people, do more things out there, go on and visit and all the great stuff. Just in the Washington area, like you said, travel the state of Washington. There's some great things that we can do, and we can do them appropriately. We're not there yet, but as you said, gradually increase travel to the state of Washington. Yes, I do anticipate that coming. Okay, so just bear with us as we continue to monitor the trends and what the state and local governance is doing, and all those kinds of things that go into that. Let's see, I'm going to get to mosquitoes here briefly. Let me see. So real quick on the security status on the gates. Oh, there's another mosquito question. Great. So on the Maui gate, so we continue to see reduced numbers coming through the Maui gate in relation to what we've had the previous 12 months. So now that the Regatta Crescent Harbor intersection is open, because that was obviously a problem. If you're going out Torpedo and you're coming to drop off your kids in our care at the CDC, and then you're heading on your way to your mission critical work, that was problematic before 8 o'clock. But then all of a sudden they finished that construction and the Regatta Crescent Harbor intersection is open. So we continue to see reduced numbers. The exchange still isn't open until 9. So I would just ask you, give me some feedback. If there's something I'm missing about that pre-8 o'clock, because we obviously don't have school buses coming back and forth, unfortunately, because I would love for my kids to be on those buses going to school instead of staying at home. Not that I don't love them, but when will, as far as the Maui gate, if you got some direct feedback on why I need to open that up before 8 o'clock, please send a note to the PAO. Or you can put it in the comments here, obviously, and we'll take a look at that. I'm always willing to take a look at things and recommendations. Time on changing HPCon status, that's going to go into that whole criteria moving forward. So we'll communicate that. There's no specific time. It's all criteria-based decisions. How can someone obtain gear left in their base gym or locker? Email widby.fitness@navylifepnw.com or call 360-257-2420. Leave a message, and fitness staff will call you on a Tuesday. Okay? So I'm sure if you have any question about that information, you can go to your Navy Life PNW app and get that contact information. But go ahead. Everybody's working, okay? It's just that everybody's not working at the same time every day. So if you have a question for a particular service, call them, leave a message. They'll get back to you. While we're on fitness, just another appreciation for everything the fitness crew and the NWR crew are doing to deliver services virtually. I participated in the SAPR 5K. The sexual assault prevention and response thing is near and dear to my heart. It just troubles me that people have to go through the effects of sexual assault, and so anything we can do to raise awareness and for our Team Whidbey community on that. So I did the 5K, posted some stuff on social media, got my little medal, share that with one of my sons who accompanied me on his bike, and so we had fun doing it. We did it for a good cause. We'll continue having those kinds of things moving forward. So really great effort on our fitness and our MWR staff. If you want to join those things, those opportunities are out there. So you just gotta get on your Navy Life PNW app and or the Navy Life PNW Facebook site and Instagram, and follow along and take advantage of the great effort that's going on out there. Likewise, sexual assault, suicide counseling, financial management counseling, all those kinds of things. We're delivering all those services. We're doing them virtually through DCS, phone calls, all that kind of stuff. So if you have a need, please contact us, contact our great staff, and they will connect with you so that we can deliver services to you. Let's see. Answered that one. Okay. Great. So I got all of those. Answered all of those. Answered those. All right. Let's talk one of my favorite topics, mosquitoes. You heard me say it before. I was astonished at the bug problem we have here on Mailer Point. Is we know that's the most intensity. Victory Terrace and Crescent Harbor also have them. So we're working across to take care of those things. So we're doing 4 things plus 1. Okay, so that's 5 total, but 4 I can control, or I can't control everything around here. Let's be honest. But 4 things that I can try to exhibit some control over, plus 1 I need help with. So we're doing habitat reduction, Okay, if you saw that whole area around the Navy Lodge got slammed with mosquitoes last year, and so that whole section on the west side of Coral Sea, around and south of the Navy Lodge, we mowed that all down. That was a back to nature area that there was a period number of years ago where we created more back to nature areas. We did feel, analyzing the issue last year and the habitat around there, that was likely to be an area that created more intensity of mosquitoes. So we went ahead and mowed that down. And when we do that, we have to go out. Our natural resources goes out, walks the field, make sure that there aren't any nesting birds and all that kind of stuff that we need to make sure we're not disrupting. And then once we get the all clear from the environmental side, then we mow it down and hopefully have an incremental improvement in our life with the mosquitoes. So the four things are habitat reduction, larvicide, surveillance, and barrier spray. Those are the four things that we're pursuing. Okay, so the question here that I just got is, can they cut the grass shorter? And what about the fields that are 2 to 3 feet tall? Okay, so just so you see fields that are that tall, doesn't mean that that's an area where mosquitoes are coming from. Where do the mosquitoes really come from? Well, they come from some of the marsh areas, okay, that surround Mailer Point and around Crescent Harbor and Victory Terrace, okay? But I can't take an airplane, a crop duster with insecticide and just spray the area. Can't do that, okay? I can't take one of those old mosquito trucks that I used to love running behind when I was a kid back through the neighborhoods with that sweet smell and fog. I can't bring those things in and just spray the whole area, okay? But there are things that we can do, and we haven't been doing, and we're working to be able to do those things. So I talked about habitat reduction. So we look at the problem, okay? So it starts with the surveillance. What we have discovered so far is that yes, we do have the mosquitoes that breed from and come from the marsh areas, okay? We also have another species of mosquito that we've discovered this time through our surveillance program that lives in the cattails. So they don't do that classic living in the water and coming out of the water. They actually live in the cattails. They get their water from the cattail, okay? And that's where they breed from. So we're learning in our surveillance program because it's important to collect data, understand the problem, and then attack the problem appropriately. So that's what's going on with our surveillance program. We have surveillance stations throughout our communities. And so if you're getting a mosquito problem, please make sure you call Hunt, put in a maintenance order that talks about, hey, I'm at this address, I've got a mosquito problem, because then we're going to fold that into our mosquito management working group, and we're going to get surveillance to that location. We have had people reach out to us, and so our preventive medicine teams have gone to at least one house that I'm aware of to do some surveillance around that house so we can capture the species, identify what species, make sure we're taking the right measures there. So that's the surveillance I talked about. So that leads to habitat reduction, okay? So just because we determined that we have species of mosquitoes, and that's actually, they did surveillance at my house, and that's where we captured some of these Culex mosquitoes that breed in the cattails. I can't pronounce the last name. It's some Italian, a Latin thing. I actually took Latin, but I still can't pronounce it. Anyway, so we're not just going to go in and mow down all the cattails. We got to figure out if there's an appropriate way where we can maintain that environmental balance, but kill the mosquitoes. It's like the movie Aliens. You got to kill them where they're laying the eggs. Okay, we got to get to the eggs. We got to get to the larvae so we can appropriately mitigate this. So that's what we're pursuing with the areas where the cattails are. So that's surveillance and that's habitat reduction. So larvicide is that thing where we actually take chemical pellets and other things and which are larvicide that kill the larva. Okay, and it was explained to me exactly how those things work, and I can't appropriately relay that explanation to you right now, but that's fine. You can Google it. But so we're looking to use larvicide on those places. And then the last thing is what we call the adulticide, killing the mature mosquitoes through barrier sprays. So Hunt has recently contracted with a pest control company for pest services throughout our community that you're usually aware of. Getting to the bees that get into the playgrounds, getting into pests in your home and around your home, all that kind of stuff. Likewise, they bring in excellent mosquito management experience. They're a regional pest control company. They do mosquito mitigation at other locations around the Seattle and Northwest, actually down to Portland too, I think. So they've got a lot of experience, years of experience. So if we find that there's a problem based on inputs from you and our surveillance program, then we have the ability, then we think we'll be able to do the adulticide, to go in, do some barrier sprays to try to get to those while we still try to attack the larvae. That's the most effective thing, is to get to the larvae. So we got entomologists on the working group. We got preventive medicine. We got Hunt is on the working group. We got NAVFAC. Everybody's in there because we want to drive the mosquito problem down without unnecessarily destroying our environment around here. So this is a copy of the letter I sent to all residents. You should have gotten this in the mail, and so I encourage you to read it. I know it's a little longer than most attention spans out there, but I did try to put some good information in there. So I talked about 4 things. That was surveillance, habitat reduction, larvicide, and barrier spray. The 5th thing is resident help on this front, okay? I go around the neighborhood walking with my family or riding bikes with the kids, and so I see backyards that do have high grass. I see kids' toys out there and all that kind of stuff. So just because we found one species, it doesn't necessarily do that classic coming from the water. We also have species who do that. So you got to make sure that that you're not letting water stay stagnant. You got to get rid of all those things that are in this letter. I'm not going to go through them. You can do that. You can also find Washington State Department of Health and CDC guidance on this stuff. I'll tell you another thing that Hunt has done. They're doing some great work going through doing projects. The fencing project they're going through, and some siding projects. Another one they're doing is roof and gutters. So they're cleaning out gutters, and honestly, they hadn't been doing that very well, but now they're doing it. And so they focused on mailer initially. They got all the mailer point gutters done. Is that right, Lamont? Yes. Yep. So they're 29th, I think, is what you had said. So they're wrapping up all the mailer point gutters. So that's an area where mosquitoes can have habitat. So habitat reduction is cleaning out those gutters. And then they're going to be going on to Victory Terrace, I think, next, and then Crescent Harbor. So working through that. Speaking of great projects Hunt is doing, we're working on another communication to all the residents to outline what all those projects are and what the status of those are, so that you can see what's currently going on throughout the neighborhoods and what's coming up. Okay, so that's mosquitoes. I talked about the surveillance. I talked about the habitat reduction, talked about the larvicide, and I talked about the barrier spray, including adulticide. Part of that is that we have to get EPA permits, and so we're in the process of getting those EPA permits to be able to put the larvicide, put the barrier spray out there. So we've learned a lot. We're working through all that stuff, and I hope to be able to continue attacking the problem. So that 5th thing is making sure that you keep your yard in order, your area, and call in mosquito problems, call in maintenance problems on that side. Speaking of that, Lamont, talking about maintenance, you want to come over and talk what your reset plan is for maintenance? Absolutely. No, that's all right. I'm going to step out of the way so that you can get in here. Get my 6 feet. You can grab your chair.
Good. Okay. So what Hunt has done is we've developed a 2-phase plan to align with the local and state government as they work to open up businesses back up. So as of June 1st, we will open our offices back up to limited services. We'll be open Monday through Friday for the community centers from 9 to 12 and 1 to 4. Between hours of 12 and 1, we'll be doing sanitizing of the entire office. So will be closed between those times, but we will be open from 9 to 12 and 1 to 4. You also notice that when you come to the community center or any of the centers, you will be required to wear face masks. You will be required to have sanitizer. And if you don't have those things, when you come, we'll be able to provide you some disposable face masks as well as sanitizer options. But you will have to have those things to visit and conduct business at any of the facilities here at Hunt. As you visit a facility, you'll see multiple signs. We have the stand here signs on the floor, and a lot of other COVID-19 protocol signs, down to the hand washing signs in the restrooms and all those things. So you visited facilities, you'll see sneeze guards up. Our team will be wearing masks when they conduct business with you. So you won't be the only one wearing masks. They have to wear a mask also. They will also be required to use hand sanitizer during every interaction with you, after every interaction with you. So, and as well as performing several cleanings during that interaction. We're going to be following strict cleaning guidelines. We'll be cleaning when we open up during the day. We'll be cleaning up during the day. We'll be cleaning after we close, and again after every interaction. The amenities, the basketball court here at VT, and some of the other services, the gyms will remain closed while we're in phase 1, which is what we're going to execute on June 1st. So all those facilities will remain closed during that time, and will be further evaluated down the line as we approach phase 2. The good news is we will return to the maintenance in itself. We return to servicing routine work orders. And so right now we're in the process of putting together a plan to service routine work orders by priority. And so that will come. Technicians will be required to wear a minimum of 4 things. They have to have face masks, they must wear gloves, goggles, and booties. And that's anyone that comes into your home, they will have to have those things on if they are employed by Hunt. And we will ask during a follow-up call if the technicians did wear those things, and we would appreciate the feedback so that we can address if any of our technicians are not wearing their safety PPE.
Those are the main things.
Yeah, I think those are the main things. We,
Okay.
with the facility, we just do ask that, they call ahead of time and kind of make appointments with the office versus showing up and visiting. There will be limited entry into the offices. They will be locked. So max personnel allowed in the office will be 2 personnel. So we would like to kind of be able to better control the traffic in the environment that's going to be in the facility. So that's one of the things.
Great.
We asked.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Lamont.
Yes, sir.
Because really, a lot of the services you guys provide out of the office, you've been able to continue providing those services in a lot of the ways. So,
Yes.
it's still important if you don't have to come in person. I mean, I like personal interaction. I like talking face to face with people, not face to face, but at appropriate distance. So anyway, still encourage you to do it over the phone, whatever. So, you mentioned, I will say, for the maintenance, so you're starting routine work orders
June 1st.
June 1st, and you're going to work through, obviously there's a backlog because people like me have been putting in those routine work orders. And so they'll still work through those. Come on, Face ID. I want to show you guys something here. Of course it doesn't work when you want it to. Come on. Anyway, I've got about 5 routine work orders in here. Apologize, Lamont, but anyway, yeah, they'll work through those in the proper order. I had another one. It was on the outside of the house, and they came and took care of that. So that's all good. So I appreciate the effort that's going on there to do all that appropriately. And so we'll be back to, yeah, it's not working right now. Anyway, figures. So that's great. Okay. What else? Did I cover everything?
Got 2 or 3 questions about the ID cards and the extension to September for those that are expiring,
Okay.
and how that's going to work with the gate and the commissary.
Yeah, so there is a back-end process on that to be able to obviously have your ID card, even though it's expired on the card, it goes into the system as not being expired. So you're not having to go get a new card. So as you come to the gate, that debit scanner, it should still work, commissary, all that kind of stuff. Whatever that magic is on the back end, that's being done so that you don't have to have the expiration date. Commissary and exchange, I will tell you, continue to really appreciate the efforts of those staffs there. And I continue to be amazed that we have some people in our community who feel like they are an exception to our policies like cloth face covering. And, it's disappointing. Our security shows up and helps take care of those situations. Also that you have to be fully clothed to go into the exchange or commissary. I just thought that people understand that, but now you can see I had to re-sign a policy that you have to wear a shirt and pants in our facilities. So we'll continue taking care of those as they come up. But thanks to our exchange and commissary staff. Just this morning, I saw on the news that, there's a bunch of meat processing plants and some fruit processing plants that have clusters of cases. So we're going to continue to see some elements of our groceries supply chains disrupted, and the commissary is doing great work. We continue to put limitations on those things that need to have limitations, and we look at those whenever things change. So continue to work through those. Okay, great. All right, we got all the questions that were sent ahead of time. I appreciate everybody who sent in questions and those who sent questions through our Facebook stream. So thanks everybody for what you're doing. Just to wrap up, so we're really looking forward to doing service reconstitution in our reset plan. We're going to have, I hope with trends, as long as trends continue as they have been, we'll see what Memorial Day weekend did. We're looking forward to getting through stage 1, getting into that stage 1 to 2 approval, sending that up by the middle of June so that we get that approval back. And by the end of June, I'm looking forward to bringing services more fully online outside of that. So we'll continue to work through all this stuff. But most importantly, across Team Whidbey, we continue to maintain our mission readiness. We continue to maintain our deployable forces. We continue to operate at Altfield and OLF and down at Boardman. And so we continue doing all these things that are important for our national security. I just saw in the news yesterday that yet another, I think it was Su-27, was flying dangerously close to one of our P-8s over there in the European theater. So we continue to see these kinds of activities and others in China, with China, North Korea, and everybody. And our forces here at Team Whidbey have to maintain their readiness to be deployable. So as you're going out there as an individual, whether you're a service member, civilian employee, contractor, or family member, just think about your actions in relations to the stress and requirement of being mission ready, and every individual has got to be mission ready. So I ask you to think about that and make the right choice as you go through your actions. And we're here to continue supporting you because we're going to maintain our mission readiness, and we're going to continue maintaining the health and safety of our personnel at Team Whidbey. So thanks for joining me, and have a great evening.